Very good morning to you. Good morning, you here locally, and good morning those of you who are live streaming. We're going to have a bit of a coffee chat this morning. I can't tell you how happy I am to be here with Reverend Dr. Edward. We intentionally designed it so there would only be one microphone. In 1989, I had completed my pre-practitioner training at Huntington Beach Church of Religious Science, and I was hunting for the perfect church in which to do my practitioner training. Agape denied me, and so I went to Burbank, and I was sitting in the back row at the Burbank church when I saw Edward for the first time. He had long, curly hair back then, and he was just like me. He was sitting in the back looking for the escape in case they asked us to bite the head off a live chicken, or whatever it is they do in places like this. And then I went and took training at a different center, but he and I came back together when we were practitioners at the Burbank Church. He graduated from ministerial school a year before me, even though we started at the same time, because he's smarter than I am. And then Santa Rosa was smart enough to snap him up, and he's been in Santa Rosa since, I believe, March of, it's been 20 years. Wow, yes, and he will give you the name of his surgeon later on, in case you want to know. Right after he took Santa Rosa, I was hired at the North Hollywood Church of Religious Science. I was their assistant minister, and this is pre-email days. This is the days when it was still okay to have styrofoam CFC cups. This is how long ago this was. And so I arrived at the North Hollywood Church, and I went into my office for the first time, and I closed the door, and I pulled out my pens and my pencils, and I put them in the cup on my desk, and I pulled out my paper clips and my tape dispenser, and I turned on my 386 computer for the first time, and I pulled out of my computer bag those different colored small floppy disks, and then I realized that all of this took about 3 minutes. And I didn't know what to do next. So I called Edward in Santa Rosa and said, I've already set everything up. What do I do now? And he said, go to lunch. So with that kind of wisdom, I shouldn't speak anymore. Please help me welcome Reverend Dr. Edward Viljoen. I will let him speak, I promise, because we don't want to miss it. He has a new book out called The Power of Meditation, and it will be in print this week. We don't have copies yet because its release date is the 29th of September. However, after service today, he will be at a table at which you can do pre-orders. But I'm in this book. He printed me. I'm famous. I was blessed to be able to do an endorsement. I wanted to read you from your center here. Thank goodness for this book. Until getting a hold of the power of meditation, I wondered if something was wrong with me. My friends and colleagues seemed to have a great relationship with meditation. They even appeared to enjoy it, while I struggled and wondered if there was a better way to enlightenment. Now that I read The Power of Meditation, I have a renewed enthusiasm for the spiritual practice, and I even look forward to it. Thank you, Edward.
Thank you, David. I'm just reflecting now on that phone call that David made to me, because I made the same phone call when I first arrived in Santa Rosa to my mentor, which was Reverend Mark Vieira, who you were working for. And I did exactly the same thing. I unpacked everything and called him and said to him, what do you do as a minister? And he said something similar, a little more wise. He said, as little as possible. And at first my response was the same as yours. I thought it was very funny, but it didn't really satisfy me, because my mind was very addicted to action and urgency. And so I said, well, that's humorous. Now really tell me what you do. And he said again, as little as possible. And I didn't realize until years later that that was very wise, to be able to have the space of doing nothing is probably one of the best things we can do for ourselves. And I didn't know that that was called meditation. And the importance of having meditation as part of our spiritual practice, and I'm thinking of the beautiful speaker we just heard, wrestling with depression, and I'm thinking of the song we just heard, we made out of flesh and bone. These are the realities of our lives. We deal with difficult things, and we're made of flesh and bone, so our minds are addicted to action, the things of flesh and bone, and we're also addicted to happy, peppy, quick solutions, joyful feelings, so that when things like depression show up, or loss, or a child gets into trouble, if we don't know the way to our quiet mind, then we start to look for relief elsewhere, in other teachings, in other people. So I had to learn how to meditate because I struggled with meditation, just like your quote said. So many people know that it's probably a good thing. I didn't know how to do it. And what I discovered was, people around me, maybe you've experienced this, were having extraordinary experiences in class with meditation, especially guided meditation. They would say, picture yourself in a forest. Nothing, right? I had nothing. Or now you see the colors change. Nothing. And I started to think I would never ever get it right. But what I discovered is there isn't a one-size-fits-all. And just like we all know exercise, many of us pretend we don't know. We know exercise is good for us. We might even think yoga is very, very good for us, but not all bodies are built the same. So not all of us can do a forward bend. But that does not relieve us from having to do something with this creature we're living in to exercise it. We have to find our right way. And it's the same with meditation. We might have a sense that it's the right thing to do, but because the few ways we've tried don't work for us, doesn't relieve us from the task of finding the way to our quiet mind, because don't you know, your wisdom is inside and not outside. Did you want to say something?
No. I have a couple questions. So, on Facebook this week, I posted a question. I asked, well, what do you want me to ask Dr. Edward this Sunday? What do you want me to pose for him to explore with all of us together? And one of them is from Reverend Joe Hooper, who's actually speaking in Santa Rosa today, since you're not there. Reverend Dr. Joe Hooper, who's the minister at the Palm Desert Center. So he's there, so you can be here. And Dr. Joe Hooper said, the question I want to ask Dr. Edward is, why do you have an ongoing conversation with your cat Andrew on Facebook?
You know, it's another humorous thing, under which is an element of beautiful truth that I think comes as a result of meditation. I think as I practiced meditation, I started to enjoy my own company more and more. And when I started to enjoy my own company more and more, the things that were already present in my life, like my cat, became treasures. So the reaching out for satisfaction and meaning and connection and validation, it just started to subside. Not completely. I mean, I had a little bit of a tizzy fit just the other day. You know, things don't go away completely, but as I practiced, I found there were things that had always been right under my nose that I could appreciate in a really beautiful way. The other thing about the close relationship and why I had a conversation with my cat is because my cat is, and maybe you know this, is a barometer for whether or not I've hit the meditation state. In fact, as soon as I sit down and I start to settle into quiet mind, he comes. Not if I call him. Cannot be called. And that's the other amazing thing about my cat. He is a teacher about meditation. You cannot force him to behave. You cannot make him come on demand. I have to sit And when I sit, if I am in the right frame of mind, he will come. That's meditation.
If you sit, he will come. Right now, I wish I had the ability to prolong time. This man is amazing. I love being around him. It's like being around a smiling little Buddha with an amazing South African accent. Another question comes from another colleague. Her name is Reverend Maureen Hoyt. She's in Southern California. And Reverend Maureen said, "My son has been experiencing anxiety and panic, and I suggested that he meditate to alleviate his anxiety. His response is, 'Mom, I can't even sit still for a minute. What makes you think I can meditate for 20 minutes?'"
Exactly. It's the problem with depression again. It's probably common knowledge that exercise is a great medication for depression. But if you're depressed, the last thing in the world you feel like doing is getting up and exercising. So there is that chasm between the knowing and the doing that really we can only be helped over through compassion and not through insistence. It's the same with meditation. You might know and have read about the benefits of meditation, but when you sit down, your mind is so busy, the last thing you want to do is be alone in your own crazy mind. So there's a chasm between the one place and the other. And so I often say to people to design a practice that is humane for themselves. So no 20 minutes. I had to learn to sit still for 1 minute. That's how crazy my mind was. And then develop a rhythm of sitting still for 1 minute every day with no agenda. And then over time, just like easy exercise, you build a muscle for it, an inclination towards it. Because if sitting still makes you even more agitated, of course you're not going to want to do it. So part of the problem of our popular culture is we are not only addicted to things that are urgent, but we also want things quickly resolved. So we want microwave, fast, overnight delivery for our meditation. We want to know today how to sit in divine mind by this afternoon. But we haven't practiced sitting still for 1 minute in the last 10 years. So we have to be very humane and say, oh, yeah, of course it's alien. It's like learning a new language. I'm going to have to be very gentle. And as with any spiritual practice, consistency grows consciousness. So I start and I commit myself to doing it. And then you know what happens is eventually my intellectual understanding of what meditation is displaced by the practice itself. The practice becomes my teacher. So it almost doesn't matter what another person experiences in meditation. You're going to find it on your own. And when you sit, if you just sit every day with no agenda, 1 minute at a time, that practice will teach you something that nobody else can ever teach you.
From Cheryl Clint Salerno, she's watching us live stream from Spain. She asked us, when you're meditating for others, how can the power of spirit heal those that we love when they may not have an open consciousness in receiving?
Oh, who has an open consciousness to receive? And you know, the good we want for other people. Oh, man. Isn't it the case that, like with my cat, that when we hold each other very lightly, we can prosper and thrive? I mean, isn't it the case with our own friendship that the more freedom and the more space we give each other, the more we love each other? The more we try to control each other, the further we want to be away from each other. Especially if I think I've got a good idea for you. I always say my mother's highest good for me was always to become an accountant. Now, I have nothing against accounting, I just can't count. But that is her heart's desire. So we get to learn to truly hold people lightly and to let them thrive. Now here's the thing. I don't meditate my peace onto them. I meditate to be peace, so that when they are in my company, they feel the safety to grow at their right pace. Haven't you ever been next to somebody who's all prayed up? Right? You want to be there. You just want to be in their company. They don't have to say anything to you. So the idea is my meditation practice is for me to be the change that the world can feel safe in. That's always been the way of metaphysics. So I trust that inner peace. I trust it to do what it must so that I become a health-filled contribution to my world that people want to be near. As soon as control or insistence creeps in, people will step back. They don't want it. Who wants it? We're surrounded by manipulation, advertising, urgency. You must look like this. You must do this. There's a better way for you. So let me not be part of that. Let me be me. And let me trust that presence of peace within me to make the contribution it will.
Tell us, as we close, tell us what Om Shanti Om means and why we might want to chant.
Well, Om is a beautiful word. So you have the symbol of it over there. It's not actually a word, it's a concept. It means all that is. In our faith tradition, we might call it the thing itself. It is the sound of creation unfolding all the time. It's pronounced more like A-U-M, Aum. It's the continuous sound of creation, the universal principle. Shanti means peace. So in the Hindu tradition, Om Shanti is a universal prayer, not for peace, not seeking peace. It's a prayer of peace. So when you say Om Shanti, it is like saying peace for all that is. It is repeating an idea until it becomes so saturated in your own consciousness that you become it. It is customary in many Hindu prayers to have Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti at the beginning or at the end of the prayer. Our own founder, Ernest Holmes, said, because people ask me, what has chanting got to do with the teachings of the Center for Spiritual Living? Well, he said we are to repeat our affirmations until they are accepted on a subconscious level. And so when we say something, Om Shanti, 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 then we add music to it, and we add rhythm to it, now it has access to us in a way that only thinking about it can never accomplish.
In closing, is there anything you want us to know about your book?
Once at a Silmar conference, I think you said about your book what I want to say about my book. Please buy it.
Dr. Edward Viljoen.